Alarm sound. The alarm clock is ringing. I answered my friend's call with a slight irritation, and he asked me for advice that I couldn't understand. The deadline for our university thesis was approaching at the end of January, and we, who were lazy students, were busy working through the night. Just when we were finally able to see the light at the end of the tunnel, my friend, who was also supposed to be busy, called me. I assumed he was worried about meeting the deadline and just wanted to hear about my progress to reassure himself. I considered ignoring the call, but since we had been in the same seminar together, I decided to take a break and listen to him. However, he said something unexpected. It was so confusing that I considered hanging up, but his tone was so serious that I listened for a moment. "What do you mean?" "That's obvious. I set an alarm so I don't oversleep when I take a nap." "No, I'm talking about the metal alarm clock we used at my parents' house when I was a kid. It makes a loud ringing sound." I didn't understand what he meant. I thought I might be hearing things due to lack of sleep, but since I was close to finishing my thesis, I decided to go to a family restaurant to talk while eating. I got some tea from the drink bar and sat down, and my friend started talking slowly. Below, I will write down my friend's experience as accurately as possible. When I was in elementary school, I loved dreaming. Dreams while sleeping. I had always had trouble falling asleep and was weak in the mornings, so I think my sleep was shallow, and I dreamed almost every day. I think the trigger was watching Whisper of the Heart on Friday night movie. I was drawn into the film and enjoyed it, but I couldn't watch it all the way through and was already asleep by 11 p.m. But I continued to enjoy the movie in my dreams. At that time, I began to think that if I imagined it strongly enough, I would be able to see the dream I wanted to see, and I started trying to control my dreams. Every night before going to bed, I would decide what dream I wanted to see and imagine it strongly before falling asleep. I repeated this process every night. Rather than just imagining it strongly, I became more successful by imagining myself as one of the characters in the dream. By continuing to be conscious of my dreams, I was able to do more and more things. Everyone has had the experience of waking up just at the right moment when the alarm clock rings, interrupting their dream and leaving them feeling frustrated, right? I, who dream every day, was no exception. But eventually, I found myself able to resist the alarm and stay in the dream without waking up, even when the alarm was ringing. I started getting scolded by my mother every morning. Looking back now, I think I should have stopped around that point. Even during school lessons or when playing with friends, the desire to sleep early and see dreams grew stronger, and I became so obsessed that I lost self-control. When I started having the dreams I wanted to have about once every 3 times, I began to feel dissatisfied with their content. For example, the world of Dragon Ball, which I loved so much. The martial arts were only capable of slow, low-altitude flight, and the Kamehameha wave was as weak as a jet balloon. When I summoned the girl I was interested in from a reality-based dream, she appeared in a mummified state. Even though the success rate had increased, the precision of the content had decreased, and I felt frustrated that I couldn't do what I wanted even though I was in the dream. By this point, I had become aware that I was intentionally choosing this dream, and lucid dreaming had become routine. I thought this was the cause. Because I was aware that it was a dream, reality inevitably crept in. I began to think that the very mindset of trying to fulfill things in a dream that couldn't be done in reality was holding me back. I believed that to achieve a perfect dream, I had to completely abandon the notion that dreams were fiction and fully convince myself that I was a superhero capable of anything, but that proved difficult and didn't work out. After a while, I started thinking about a different approach. I aimed to blur the boundary between reality and dreams, putting myself in a state where I couldn't tell the difference, and eliminating the escape route of it's just a dream after all. I wondered if I could superimpose my dreams onto the real world by always staying in a state of semi-sleep. I decided not to sleep at night for a while and only sleep during school lunch breaks and my least favorite social studies class. It was difficult to stay awake at night. No matter how hard I tried to stay awake, my eyelids would naturally droop. On the first day, I fell asleep around 2 a.m. The next day, I managed to stay awake until around 5 a.m. I read manga and stayed awake until I couldn't anymore. On the fifth day, I experienced sleep paralysis. I heard the sound of something walking down the hallway, along with the unpleasant sound of claws scraping the floor. Something entered the room and climbed onto my stomach. I realized it was the dog I used to have, and I was certain it was him. The feeling of being unable to move triggered a sense of fear, forcing me to recall the death of my pet dog, which was close to me. The image became a dream, and the sounds and sensations were overwritten by reality. Even if it didn't affect others, I was able to create my own world and reality. Perhaps this was a psychic phenomenon, but I was convinced that it was an extension of a dream. From then on, I became even more immersed in recreating and sublimating the phenomenon. More easily, I sharpened my senses to recreate sleep paralysis. More clearly, I strengthened my imagination to feel dreams not only through hearing and touch but also through sight and smell. More freely, I tried to materialize diverse mental images without relying on fear. More routinely, I sought the boundary between wakefulness and sleep to overlay dreams onto reality even without being in a state of sleep paralysis. When my sense of time became vague, I felt as if my own dream world had been completed. However, at the same time, I lost all motivation, and there was nothing I wanted to achieve or fulfill. I'm sleepy. I float up to the ceiling of the classroom and look at the teacher at the lectern. He's talking about various things, but I'm not interested. I'm sleepy. The teacher scolded me and worried about me, but I became invisible, so I didn't care. I'm sleepy. I can see Pooh-suke the dog waiting in the schoolyard. I'm happy to see Pooh-chan again after such a long time. I'm sleepy. Before I knew it, there was no one left in the classroom. It's dark outside, so school must be over. Let's go home with Pooh-chan. My mom will be happy too. I'm sleepy. The above is a story I heard from a friend about when he was in elementary school. His parents found him sleeping outside the front door early in the morning, so they had him checked out at the hospital just in case, and he also went to a sleep clinic, but after that, he seems to have been fine. My friend reflected that he had gone too far and decided to regulate his lifestyle and not dwell on his dreams. He had forgotten about this resolved issue from the past, but the sudden sound of the alarm clock triggered a flashback, causing him to feel anxious and consult me. Of course, I couldn't come up with a solution, so all I could do was listen to him. I told him not to think about the alarm clock until he finished his thesis. After submitting the thesis, I advised him to get plenty of sleep, and if the sound still persisted, to consult a psychiatrist. He didn't look convinced, but he agreed to follow my advice. I can imagine why he wasn't convinced, what he really wanted to talk about, and why he couldn't bring himself to say it. Should I wake up or not? In the end, that's what matters to him. When the alarm goes off next, he won't know what to do. But I can't answer that question, and I'm glad he didn't ask me. Because I don't know his world, his reality. Since then, the alarm clock has not gone off until graduation, and we have grown distant since I started working. When we contacted each other once, he said that the alarm clock went off again a few months after graduation, and it continues to go off at shorter intervals even now. He said that his job is demanding and he cannot get enough sleep, and he is sleepy. I pray that he will not give up on this world and that he will not wake up. This is the end of this story. Thank you for listening to the end.